Hello and welcome back to Raze Gaming, and of course more update 3 of Sunbreak. Within this update we have a few new skills that have some interesting descriptions that aren't very descriptive. When you read them you're like, well, I have more questions than answers here. Specifically, we are referring to Powder Mantle, which can be found on the new Risen Kaiser set, and of course the new Wind Mantle, which can be found on the new Risen Kushala set. Today I have put some time in and done some testing with both of these skills in many different scenarios to try and work out how they actually do work, how I would recommend you use them, or even if you should. So let's begin, and we're going to start with that Kushala one, Wind Mantle. To begin with, let's read the official description of Wind Mantle, and then we can go over what I've learned. The description says that using Siltbind attacks boosts your Wirebug gauge recovery, meaning it'll recover faster. Then landing continuous attacks further will increase the effect. However, it will wear off when you sheath your weapon. At level 1, that simply has the effect activate, but at 2 and 3, that will further boost the recovery speed, meaning you get those Wirebugs back faster. Visually, this will add the green color to your Wirebugs and a sort of burst of wind effect to highlight that it is engaged and working. I like this visual. It showcases when it's active and when it's not, but the real question is, how relevant is this? Now, as I am a dual blades main, I started with dual blades. I found that the main Siltbind attack that I use, Spiral Slash, has a 13-second cooldown. Wirebug Whisperer is another great skill that's ran in lots of different sets, and the recovery time while on the ground is better when you have level 3 of that. That takes off a whole second of the cooldown of Spiral Slash. Meanwhile, just one level of Wind Mantle also reduces the cooldown by 1, while constantly attacking will further improve that cooldown, bringing it down to an 11-second cooldown on all following Wirebugs after the initial. So a 2-second decrease on Wind Mantle is not terrible. So what I did is I tested all the different levels with no Wirebug Whisperer, and then 1 and 2 levels of Wind Mantle, then 3 levels of Wirebug Whisperer, which is required because it's part of one of the sets. It has 3 levels of it. Without constantly attacking, I was able to get the Spiral Slash cooldown to 10 seconds, while with constantly attacking with 3 levels of Wirebug and 3 levels of Wind Mantle, I was able to get it down to a 9-second cooldown on the following Wirebugs. So that's a 3 to 4 second improvement, but a pretty massive commitment when you need 3 of this set, 3 of Risen Kushala's armor pieces, to get 3 levels of Wind Mantle. The thing is, Spiral Slash isn't exactly the best option for a Siltbind to spam on cooldown. There are many cases where the monster is simply moving around and it's not going to happen, or the hit zones that you can hit on that monster aren't viable and just go straight through. It is not a Siltbind that you can blindly use on cooldown. You need to time it and aim it. What about a longer cooldown Siltbind attack though? Maybe the benefits are better on that. I checked a few, and an obvious example is the Hammer, which has Impact Crater, a very hard-hitting single use that uses 2 Wirebugs and longer recovery because of that. The normal cooldown of that without any improvements is 20 seconds. With 3 levels of Wirebug Whisperer and 3 levels of Wind Mantle, it's down to 15 seconds. That is a notable increase. But again, the question comes back to, is this worth it? In my opinion, this is a neat addition to the game that benefits the Siltbind attacks of all weapons. However, it's ideal with weapons that are actually able to make use of using a Siltbind attack on cooldown. So for any reason, if you cannot consistently use your Siltbind attacks the moment it's available, then this is not really a relevant skill. You aren't benefiting from the skill and committing so hard to it. There are some Siltbind attacks that would benefit from this, like Bullet Barrage. You can use that the moment it's available, sort of consistently getting value out of the skill. But like I said, Spiral Slash with my dual blades main is really not a viable thing. I cannot just blindly press that every single time it's up. It doesn't work like that. So certain builds should consider it then, but only the ones that clearly benefit from using Siltbinds the moment it's back, with no issue doing that consistently. I found that just 1 level of Wind Mantle while constantly attacking will be good value if you are someone that can constantly spam Siltbinds. You can find Wind Mantle on the helmet, you can find Wind Mantle on the gloves, and you can find Wind Mantle on the boots. I find them all great pieces though, because there's a 3-2-1 slot on the helmet, there's a 4 and a 2 on the gloves, and there's a 4 and a 4 on the boots. So you could argue that the boots is an incredible option if you're just going to go for 1 level. But that's Wind Mantle. So now we should talk about the Risen Teostra skill, the Powder Mantle. Once again, we're going to start with the official description and then go from there. You continuously attack a large monster, and that will eventually cause powder to form around you. The color and effects of the powder will also change. Then we have the levels. At level 1, when sent flying when wreathed in red powder, you'll receive explosive damage. The English description of that is different to the Japanese one apparently, which more accurately reflects how it actually works. This is seemingly a poor translation. Then it says attack when in blue for an explosive finish. We'll talk about how this actually works in a second. At level 2 and 3, it simply reduces the amount of hits required to activate the powder. So in testing, here's how it actually works. You attack a target many times, and eventually you'll hear the sound that indicates the powder has now formed, as well as literally being able to see this sort of orange, light orange glow around you, much rather than red, it's more orange. Then after time passes, which means you do not need to keep attacking anymore, it will turn blue, and then back to the orange, and then back to blue. If you take a hit while you've got that red/orange aura, you will deal some explosive damage to the enemy that hits you. It doesn't hurt you in any way like the English description described. Then while you're in blue, what you can do is just attack, and it'll expend the powder to deal a sort of explosive hit, on top of the normal damage you would do with a weapon. Either way, when you expend the powder after taking a hit while in orange, or by landing a hit while in blue, you will now need to deal more attacks to generate powder and use it again. So the big questions are these. How many hits does it take to activate the powder? At level 3, which makes it so there's less hits required, it is about 37 to 40 hits with dual blades. I found that the 6-fold demon/combo into a blade dance or a spiral slash twice will work about the right amount. Whereas with a slow weapon, it is, say, with a greatsword, 6 hits in a row, which is pretty quick when you're using, say, the falling slash combos. Compared to that, with the greatsword, at level 1 you'll need 12 hits, at level 2 you'll need 9, and again at 3 you'll need 6. So it halves the amount of hits you need with any weapon when at level 3 compared to 1. Now the time that you're in the orange aura is 20 seconds, and the time that you're in the blue aura is less at 10 seconds, and it swaps between them continually until you expend it or leave the fight. The actual damage of the explosion is interesting. When you're expending it via a hit when in blue, I was looking at different numbers. I was doing 425 with the greatsword and 413 with my dual blades, and I found that the explosion damage is independent of any hit zone, but it does scale with raw. So naturally, a greatsword does more damage than a dual blade by default, but there are various ways to increase your raw with different weapons, and that would increase the damage of the explosion. Josh suggested I test with the Teostra Soul Jewel with his Rampage decoration. It says that it slightly increases the damage dealt by blast explosions, which would be perfect for this, just like it would have been for Intrepid Heart. For Intrepid Heart, this did not work. And again, for Powder Mantle, sadly, the Teostra Rampage decoration doesn't work for the Teostra skill. Meanwhile, if you take a hit and blow up while in that red or orange powder, the damage is notably less than in blue powder form. With my random gear tests, I was getting 102 with greatsword and 99 with dual blades, so raw seems to reflect the damage there as well. But yeah, you deal way more damage when you use the blue, which you'll have to wait for. In conclusion, on Powder Mantle then, it is not worth building for this. It's just fine, but it's not that relevant. However, these armor pieces are really good and are likely going to be in the meta. They're really efficient for affinity. Take the helmet, the chest, or the waist, which all have Powder Mantle as part of it. We have Weakness Exploit, Critical Eye, Weakness Exploit, Critical Eye, 3 levels of it, and then Master's Touch and Ballistics on the waist, which is pretty interesting. So these are obviously very strong pieces with insane decoration slots. So a 4 and a 3 on the waist, 2 and a 2, which is not as good on the chest, but still good, and 3 and a 2 on the helmet. So I reckon these pieces are probably going to be in the meta and be used by plenty of people, and by proxy, people will have Powder Mantle. So knowing how it works is going to be a good thing, but it'll be a passive extra addition that you didn't really care about or try for. To have 1 or 2 levels of it is nice, but you should never really work towards it because it's not that good. But there you have it. That is my overview and testing that I've done with Wind Mantle and Powder Mantle and my thoughts about each. Both are fine and both are best used as a sort of accidental thing. Part of the armor you were going to wear anyway, unless you are a build, say with Wind Mantle, that really benefits from spamming its silk binds blindly the moment they come off cooldown, which is certainly not everyone. While yet in optimal settings, your target dumbing monster does nothing but stand there and lets you do whatever you want, well there it would be great, but we all know that's not how Monster Hunter usually goes. The monster does try to fight back usually. I do find them interesting skills though and neat additions, especially with the fact that, say, with the powder that's not amazing, it'll be seen in builds and be used just by proxy of being on a great armor piece anyway. If you guys know anything else about the details of the skills, then be sure to drop it in the comments, but otherwise I hope this video helped you, and if it did, drop a like on it so we can keep making content like this. For now though, that's the video. I've been Hollow, you've been you, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.